If you can breathe, you can kill! Beneficent Emperor, grant me hatred! Don't you lot ever shut up!
Originally I played Darktide non-stop because I enjoyed the moment-to-moment gameplay and I wanted to test my new mouse's left-click life expectancy. More recently it's been harder to justify 800 hours of playtime with the excuse that I just really like bonking heretics when there are other things I could be experiencing instead. This is where the ultimate shake-up Fat Shark featured voice lines come into play, something that they've been getting rather good at since the first Warhammer Rat game. Stick a zealot who hates mutants from the bottom of his soul with the abhuman bloke who pulls people's arms off for fun and watch them bounce off each other. It's not really a new concept for most of us, but these peeps have it down to a science at this point. Still, how do I explain that I've locked myself into a 20-minute mission, riding the minuscule chance that these characters talk to each other in a way that doesn't resemble abject loathing?
I do want to be your friend, you know. Only I have to be—
Everybody bloody hates you!
My enjoyment of the voice work in Darktide is a bit visceral, so I'll try my best to go through why it works so well and not something like, yeah, I like the funny noises. One thing that's easy to pin down is the amazing cast and delivery. The way the sound team have mixed or mastered delicate nuance, cadence, and a bunch of other words I googled to sound smart. After reading that Fat Shark hadn't in fact kidnapped an insane German man who happened to be mid-argument with London's thickest blighter, and that it was actually a chap called Greg doing the voices consecutively, I was taken by surprise. Before spending far too much time pillaging Tertium for all it's worth, my knowledge of voice actors went about as far as knowing who Troy Baker is. Maybe even on occasion, I could point out the guy who played the cowboy in Overwatch. Nowadays, whenever anything with voice work releases, I play a psychotic minigame where I try to recall the names of any VA who appears. Of course, I'm wrong 99% of the time. My knowledge is mostly limited to voice actors who featured in Darktide. Specifically from class personality VAs, you'll hear many lines, from low grumbling about the reject experience to full-on maniacal screeching. The screeching side of things usually originate from combat ability voice lines, going hand in hand with Darktide's balls-to-the-wall gameplay. Having hype voice lines is important to get your players riled up, but it's also important from a practical standpoint. You'd want to know if Zealot whipped out his relic half a room away, or the veteran just activated Executioner's stance so you can get those juicy marked elite kill steals. And despite being something we've all heard before, I mean, ability shouts are the bare minimum when it comes to voice lines in a multiplayer shooter, Darktide's many mid-combat lines are done exceptionally well, each one giving a glimpse into the personality of your character and just how much fun the VAs must have had in the booth. Oddly enough, the VAs are also very good at talking about regular stuff like your ammo pickups, your plague ogrins, and your non-consensual Warhammer 40k lore drops. I would love to go in depth about the sound design for the more obvious features, or even the soundtrack, but I don't know anything about music theory, and if I did, this would be a Jesper Kid video essay fan channel. Unfortunately, we're going to have to delve into the more fun stuff, like just how well Fat Shark have weaved the voices into every aspect of the game. When you're waist deep in Poxwalker goop, someone will be yelling about it. During any moment of respite, someone will go off on a tangent, and if you're near an objective, you can bet that one of these cheeky buggers will be complaining about it. Darktide has 21 class voices to smash together, and they are all built to yap. Bully Ogren and his launch voice lines could play for 2 hours straight, and he's the least talkative personality in the entire game.
Wait, you lot get paid?
You get the idea. Slowly over time you'll get a better sense of the characters and sheer level of integration, which admittedly isn't immediately apparent. The 21 voices in Darktide don't hold a candle to the familiarity of the 5, but they do try. They really try to squeeze some personality out of these guys, and the result is more than enough to have me writing about it. No matter the combination of classes, there's bound to be an entertaining dialogue happening between them. These aren't your average guardsmen struggling to order an inexperienced squad of rejects around. These are battle-scarred veteran sharpshooters chatting the shit with the smartest Ogren this side of the Mobian domain. To highlight this, I'm going to show you an example of a bonding conversation between the female agitator Zealot and the brawler Ogren. Bonding conversations are rare dialogues that trigger under unspecified circumstances and happen to have the longest lasting back and forth chats in the game.
Was thinking, if someone taught me to read...
Oh, very well. Should we survive this mission, then I might, mark thou, offer thee my humble assistance. May the Master grant me patience.
So, straight away we can surmise that both of them are complete morons. The Zealot for thinking she can teach an Ogren with a malfunctioning bonehead implant how to read, and the Ogren because he's an Ogren. These two have multiple conversations like this, Agitator putting on her usual facade of ecclesiastical nonsense, cracking under brutish ignorance, and ending up as his reluctant caregiver. You'd never think that she would act this way when you compare these to her more prominent voice lines, and it's until you hear these types of lines that you might have a different opinion of her.
I wilt have thee know that I am a bastion of tolerance. 'Tis merely our circumstances that rouseth me to intemperance. Certainty is a mocker of restraint.
You are perhaps a deeper soul than I first believed.
Now you'll begin to question what kind of depth the other personalities have, if they are equally subversive or as quietly kind-hearted to their fellow rejects as someone like the Judge. The conclusion I came to is that all these characters just need a hug, except the loner psyker, he's an asshole. Much in the same way that the bloke coughing into an open mic without realizing takes away from your Darktide experience, depending on how you feel about that sort of thing, the usual mission chatter does wonders to envelop you in the world of 40k. So many of the voice lines reveal small details about Atoma, the Mobian domain, and the ragtag band of weirdos trying to fix them. Even if you're not immersed because you're too busy laughing at something stupid said by an Ogren, then I'd say it did its job. The Morningstar cast themselves have a big part to play in Darktide as mission handlers. Although not as flexible as the player characters, they still play a role in the immersion aspect of gameplay. You have the pleasure of being accompanied or chastised on comms by a huge variety of your superiors, including a sassy tech priest, a rogue trader, a 200-year-old British man, and the ship's bloody barber, to name but a few. They spend most of their time begging the rejects to stay on course, but they'll have a banger of their own lined up now and then.
I don't know if Isola wants to bother killing Wolfer. He'll give himself an aneurysm at this rate. Morrow is bold.
What the actual fuck?
In Darktide, you're fighting against the Heretic Guard and a cult of Nurgle. Apart from the groans and moans of the more physically corrupted, they're not too chuffed about you rolling up on their turf. Safe to say, they all have great performances too.
This is brilliant. But I like this.
On you something special.
As Darktide moves from patch to patch, those cheeky bastards at Fat Shark stealth and voice lines without telling anyone. Now it's a tad hard to notice, but the narrative of the game is evolving over time. From level 1 to 30, you'll hear your character adjust to the hive, Morningstar guards will start treating you like heroes, and nowadays, most references to future content are discovered or theorized through the odd line. So after every big update, you're anticipating the new content, new lines, and new teasers teasing an update that could be years away. And I can already hear someone say, "Wow, Fripp, this isn't really a big positive of the voice lines. In fact, this is beginning to sound like you're a bit addicted." Yeah. Now let's talk criticisms. The biggest criticism I have about the interaction systems is that you'll barely hear them if you're playing Auric and above, since hordes reduce or even eliminate the chance of longer conversations. There's not much you can do about it though. I mean, you don't play Maelstrom to have a chill stroll through Tertium listening to voice lines. Also, if you get interrupted midway through a once in a lifetime rarity conversation, then it doesn't continue after things have calmed down. Luckily for many people, Fat Shark let us edit which personality our reject has, although being able to change your voice is very unhealthy for someone who wants to hear all the voice lines the game has to offer. So I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to make sure I find some awesome new lines I've never heard before, and that none of them will be taken out of context by the player base at all.
Don't care how old she is.
Converse, the less I am certain whether you are an imbecile or merely taunting me.
I would never taunt you, Sparkhead. Do not have the smarts.
You see? There you go again.
No, I'm right here.